I'm going to give you that stronger dose, but I'm also going to be with you here for the whole way, and I'm going to push you, but I'm here and I'm going to push you. At the end, I'm like, oh yeah, you were with me the whole time, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You were dealing with your thing, and everyone was dealing with their thing, and I'm here to facilitate that. And it was just, it's kind of not the answer you want, but it's the answer you need. And I feel like you're doing that same thing, that shaman energy of giving this space to these people and giving them this experience, but not judging it.
Creating a sacred space. Like I mentioned before, the 3 processes are associated. Initiation merely means introduction into a new version of yourself. And so a process, I learned the process of lifting weights and active meditations and made them my tools. So they're my processes. They're things that I use to heal myself. A sacred space, which is always available when we come together in community. So be it a one-on-one opportunity or in a group setting, you create a sacred space. The people create the sacred space. And as a coach, that's what we do. We create a sacred space in our gym. And a ritual elder. And a ritual elder is merely a man who's been through it, done that, and healed his wounds such that he can hold space for someone to go through the same process.
Right. It's the cycle of humanity. Yeah. I saw a bunch of that on my second ceremony. I'll tell you about it another time. But I saw some like really wild kind of alpha icons of humanity, and I saw them kind of doing this circle of guidance and shamanism passed on to generations of humans. And at the same time, I was also being completely dissolved and shown that the significance of humanity is nothing in the universe of time. But at the same time, I was fighting back and saying, well, guess what? We're still here. And while I'm here, I'm going to honor my emotions. And it was just this crazy observations I got. But I don't know, it was really, I got a lot of information that I'm still
processing. Dissolving the ego. It's amazing what's available when we get out the way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people experienced that yesterday, because I think maybe not for me as much as some of those young men, this was probably, for many of them, maybe the single most profound experience of their life when it came to dissolving that in this tribal setting where everything was okay and amongst males, and a lot of them took things away. One of our guys here had, psychedelic type experiences, was seeing things and seeing images and powerful stuff.
One of the things that we found is that in retrospect, all of the gifts are given. If you're looking for it while you're doing it, you're going to miss it. But then a week, 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 months later, you can look back and you're like, wow, that altered the trajectory of my life. It altered the trajectory of my life based on my perspective. I got a brand new perspective. And so it's less about like, if I give you a tool, I give you a pickaxe, that's not the gold. But now that you have the pickaxe, you're out there and it's like, wow, this is much easier to find the gold. And then, so the gold is a result of you getting the tool earlier.
Right, yeah. And you don't know what tool you got.
Right.
You got something, yeah. Yeah, I can see that a lot. And also, like you said, you built this kind of orgasmic cycle up. And I mean, just the fact that you got a group that big of young men to just be quiet for even 30 minutes. I mean, that's a major accomplishment. So like you said, I mean, you remember sometimes the yelling and the screaming and the chanting, but those quiet spaces you created, that's super precious. So.
Yeah, that's where we see ourselves. We don't see ourselves in all the talking, all the acting, all the doing. It's in the being. I like to reference a lot of Neo-Jungian work. I say Neo-Jungian because it comes from Carl Jung, but I am really a big fan of the work of Robert Moore, who created King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, which is a book and a process by which men come into contact with what Carl Jung called the quadrated psyche. Okay. And so when you study personality, you've got the being aspect, thinking, feeling, and doing. We all have these 4 things. And so he referred to being as king, feeling as lover, doing as warrior, and thinking as the magician aspect. And each of the 3, thinking, doing, and feeling, are very embodied. They're very sensual. They're very active. They're very extroverted. But to come home to our king, the king aspect is being. And that's the one that's most confusing to us, because we live in a world that's over mentally stimulated, over physically stimulated, and emotional. That when we can drop the emotion, drop the doing, drop the thinking, then the king aspect arises, because we're just being. And that's really what we want to come home to.
So powerful. Yeah, and some advice I got as well in the movie: just be.
Yeah.
You know, again, something Ybor said, that you're trying to accomplish all these things because ultimately you're trying to show that you have worth. He said, well, just be. You have worth in just being. And we did a meditation for each one of those archetypes yesterday, and yeah, that was super powerful. Just change the script a little bit. I thought I'd ask you while you're here. Racism. You're mixed race. You live in the South, which is Florida. We see some divisiveness going up in America, and I'm just curious on your take, because you also connect across the races to young men who follow you for strength and for all these other dynamic meditations. What do they ask you sometimes, like, Elliott, I don't know what to do, what do we say, or what are your thoughts on race relations, or how we deal with this, or do we need to have more of a conversation or less of a conversation, or just get back to who we really are?
It's a great question. You know, in the same way that there seems to be this great divide of victim and demon between men and women, which is brand new, it is new in many aspects in the way we're experiencing it. We've been experiencing this also too with the divide between the races. And I don't see any attention being shown upon it that provides any value besides creating more division, more victimhood, more blame. And so I think on both sides we can probably stop it. Like I said, I'm mixed race, so I've got both, and I can see from both angles. And I think the victimhood that a lot of black people embrace is an identity that is disempowering. And I know, being colored, I guess you would say, and being recognized as black in America, that there's almost, and I've done it before too, so I know where it's coming from when I identified with that you're almost looking for racism to happen. It's like you're hypersensitive for it, like when is it gonna happen, or you expect it. And I can only speak my own experience, but I see it with my black friends also too, that we'll begin acting differently because we're expecting that we're going to be victimized. In the same way with, men and women, so now women are looking and expecting to be victimized. That's not healthy because it shuts us out from authentic communication and relationship with the people that we're around. And then the other side, just coming from a black perspective, the white it's very difficult to come into relationship with someone who has defenses up, who is waiting to be victimized. And sometimes it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Coming from the white perspective, there's a lot of shame and guilt, white shame. And it's funny because in America, it's almost now, it's not okay to be white. And white people are afraid of their whiteness, and they're ashamed of their whiteness. They want to be everything but white. And I think that's stupid too, because you're pandering to the victim mentality of the other. And also too, I think it's wonderful to be proud of your race. And there's black pride, and you see black power, and you see all this happening. But white people have taken it to such a degree that there's white shame, and that it's not okay to stand up for your whiteness. Where whiteness is amazing. Western culture built by the white man is an amazing development that came through our Caucasian friends. You see, America comes from the English. It's Anglo-Saxon, So there should be white pride, just as much as there is black pride. And so people say Black lives matter, all lives matter, white lives matter.
And it's kind of like when they don't honor it, they're actually sowing the seeds of more potential
problems. Yeah, be white and be proud, because if you're not, like you say, you're further perpetuating the divide through the victimness.
Right, similar to with men and women right now. And with men, when we marginalize who we really are, or expressing ourselves, we're actually sowing the seeds for just more danger and discord later. And we're also building up these weird relationships that don't honor the energy.
No, it's fake. It's made up.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems like, with that, you talk about men and you talk about men and women in black and white, it seems like, and it's so funny because it's definitely the case because media is perpetuating it, white men are the most demonized people in America. That's nuts. That doesn't make any sense. And it's okay because you watch, like, I think Don Lemon was his name, which is a black gay guy on TV who says that we should stop demonizing people. This was brand new, a couple weeks ago. We should stop demonizing people, but recognize that the biggest threat to America are white men. And that's okay. Imagine a white guy, a straight white Christian man said, we should stop demonizing people. By the way, black homosexuals are the biggest threat to America. That would be destroyed, shut down. In fact, there was a white lady who said on TV, she said that wearing blackface during Halloween is not really racist because she had a friend that wanted to be Diana Ross. So she dressed it up like a black woman. Man, the media ate her up and spit her out. She was fired from her job. So you could see the hypocrisy in that. That it's okay for this gay black guy to say that straight white men are the biggest demon, and it's okay. They're just going to play it, and it's accepted. But on the other end of the spectrum, if you had a straight white guy say that, it's imbalanced, it's wrong. And so if we're looking for equality, we got to recognize the hypocrisy in the way we're doing things now.
How does this all play out?
You got to break down before you build up. And, someone who I mentioned before, Jesse Lee Peterson, who's a black